I am going through some serious hormonal issues right now. I'm so nervous for this story time, y'all. I had to pour me a little drink. It's about to get real. Y'all see Bae in the back. Say hi, Bae.
Hi.
I'm actually making this video pretty late, so story time. I don't even know where to start. So this video is actually like a really sensitive topic for me. It is about domestic abuse in a relationship. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a male and a female. Sometimes it's like two males or two females. Domestic abuse in a relationship can come in like all different kinds of ways. For me particularly, my story was with my baby father, not my boo back there, because he know better. I will whip his ass if he ever tried me. But like a really long time ago, like I had my daughter at 19, so this actually started when I was 18, like fresh out of high school. And yeah, so I guess like in the beginning of the relationship, I guess that's where I'll start with. In the beginning of the relationship, everything was perfect, a-okay. He was actually my best friend for the longest time. That one guy friend that you have that's always hitting you up after like a long, awful relationship that just feeds you a whole bunch of nonsense. He says stuff like, oh, come mess with a real nigga and leave these, lame guys alone. That's how basically it started off. And at first I was just like, you know what? I'm tired of this guy continuously saying the same stuff. So I went ahead and did. I was like, let me just be in this relationship for fun. A couple months in, and he was my best friend at first, so the vibe was already there. But just the quality time we were spending was like amazing. We were always laughing together. So you are so annoying. Stop! We were always laughing together. So like off but the vibe was just amazing. The chemistry was already there because we had been friends for so long. So I mean, a couple months passed by, and I want to say, I don't remember exactly. The first time he ever like physically hit me, I think we were outside somewhere, and I don't remember the whole instance. I know we were like right outside my house because I lived in this 2-story condo with my mom and my little sister. And the way it happened, it was so quick that I couldn't even process it. And like as soon as he did it, like he was super apologetic and like crying and like just really like sorrowful. So immediately I didn't even know how to process it. Like it was just so weird that he did it because it was out of his character as far as I knew. And I don't know. I was pretty upset about the whole situation, but he was, like I said, he was super apologetic when it happened, and he was just crying, and before I could even like react, he was like oh my gosh, so the first time it happened, I kind of swept it up under the rug. After that instance, like I'm pretty sure there were a couple red flags that should have been like leave. I just obviously did not listen to my instincts, which was probably telling me to leave, which I knew was telling me to leave. So by the time I could blink, I was pregnant. I was actually at that point tired of the relationship. It was so long ago. This was like in 2012 in November, December. I was already so tired of the relationship, and next thing I know, I'll never forget the day because I was having like really bad back pain, and I went to the hospital. I left work and went to the hospital, and they did like urine samples and blood samples, And the doctor said, your kidneys and everything is fine. Did you know you're pregnant? And I was like, how? Where? And I immediately called him. And at first, he was super excited. During the pregnancy, the first trimester, he was excited for the baby and stuff like that. And no issues. Like, he was very, how would I put it, verbally aggressive at this point, off and on. I wasn't getting so much violence anymore for like my first and second trimester. My family didn't find out until really late, and of course they were not ecstatic because I was so young. I got a lot of options to not keep the baby, but he kept pressuring me into doing it. And with my own religious beliefs, I didn't want to go with, the other option. So we ended up keeping it. Throughout the relationship, while I was pregnant, it got like pretty rocky. And I think I was 6 or 7 months when he cheated on me and got another female pregnant. Yeah. So that's another story for another day. I will never forget this one time my mom had went out of town, and one of my close friends, who's actually like a brother to me, he had called my phone and I didn't answer. I don't know why I didn't answer, but I didn't answer the phone. And he got like really jealous and skeptical, and he was just extremely violent. And he pushed me down my steps, and I had to be like 6, 7 months pregnant. I never told anybody because I don't know. Like, at first, the abuse wasn't even like the stuff you see on Lifetime. And I grew up watching Lifetime, and I always said, like, how could a female put up with this? Or why she never leave? Or why she wouldn't beat his ass? Or why this and why that? But the way it happened, I don't know. At some point, it became like a regular thing. And I don't know at what point that happened. But yeah, I allowed it to get that far. And the fact that I was pregnant, I was afraid to call the authorities or, pursue any type of legal actions or even tell my mom. Because I know she or anybody else in my family was not going to be having it. So I think fear is what kept me, like, what kept it going for so long. Not necessarily being afraid of him, but just like what my family would say, what my friends would say. At some point, I think my friends knew, because the best friend that I had at that time, I was like always telling her and showing her the messages. So my friends had an idea, give or take, a few of them, but I didn't think they knew it was that serious. And the one friend that did know it was that serious, she never told my parents or anything, but she would like tell me to leave and whatnot. So let's fast forward 9 months later. I had my baby girl, very healthy, beautiful, and whatnot. For some reason, I thought that it would end there. It didn't. It actually continued. So I want to say the first time where my mother actually found out that this was happening was maybe when my daughter was like 2 or 3 months. I had left to go to work. I was the only work at this time. He was not working, and I was the only one working. I left to go to work. I'll never forget this day. It was so crazy. My best friend at the time had picked me up, and I had got off of a very late shift. I was working at Modelo Sporting Goods, and I got off at like probably like 11, almost 12, and all the fast food restaurants were closed, and I couldn't bring him dinner home. And he was like really, really upset about that. Like in his feelings, oh, you left me home all day with the baby, and you couldn't even bring me dinner. Like just complaining and nagging and all that nonsense. And my daughter was downstairs with him because, I mean, my parents, well, my mom and my aunt who I was living with, they would allow him to like spend the night and stuff since, you know, we had a child together, but he could never spend a night in my room, which was upstairs. So he would like, you know, have a air bed downstairs in the living room or whatever. So my daughter was downstairs, probably in her bassinet or her swing or something, and I had went upstairs to change my clothes, and he followed me. And I think this is when I knew it was really serious. I forgot what had happened, but he had pushed me really hard to the point that I fell on the bed. And in retaliation, I was just so, you know, after a long day, I was fed up. I just was not having, and I kicked him. And the way I kicked him, like, I knew he felt it because he hit the wall. He hit the wall hard. And my legs are the strongest part of my body. I kicked the mess out of him, and he flew back and hit the wall. And I think that's the part that woke my mom up, me kicking him. So as soon as that happened, he just like backed up and swung at me and hit me and like punched me in my face, like my eye area. And I have, you know how when you watch those cartoons and you see like Bugs Bunny, he sees stars, he gets hit, he sees stars and like white light and everything. I saw stars when that nigga hit me, like boom. Like it was crazy. And that very instance when he hit me, it just so happened that my mom walked in the door and she was not having it. He is very, very lucky that we're in America and we was not back home in Africa, because she probably would have slaughtered him. Seriously, she was not having it. She went off. She was like, you hit my daughter. She was going off. She was like, get your stuff and get out of my house before I kill you. And he was like, no, it was an accident. I didn't mean to hit her. I hit her with an open fist. What? I hit her with an open fist? What? What is that? What is the open fist? Is that when you mush somebody? Like, what does that even mean? So yeah, all that commotion, my uncle, who was in the basement, he was staying in the basement at that time, my mom's little brother, he just like rushed upstairs. Oh my gosh. It took every force of God to get my uncle from not killing that man. Like, he was like, come outside, since you like to hit females, let me see you on the one. Like, and my baby father was not trying to go out. He was not trying to have it. Like, he was like, if we fight, you might have this win, but I'm gonna come back with my shooters. Like, and my mom had to like talk him down not to whip his ass. So he just ended up leaving. And I didn't talk to him. Like, at that point, I was done. And like with my family and everything, finding out like it was that serious, I was like completely done at that point. And I did not contact him for like a good 2 months. Like, it was little text messages here or there to see his daughter or whatnot. But as far as the relationship, I was done. I'm pretty sure he went back to his other baby mother at that point. But I was not even at a space where I cared. But a couple months later, some sweet talking here or there. I don't know what. I'm pretty sure what was just going through my head was my daughter having her father in her life. And that was like a major thing for me since I didn't grow up with my dad, like physically there. I didn't want her to have the same thing, even though my childhood was almost perfect. Like, I have nothing to complain about. My mom was an excellent mother and father, and I have so much family that I never really felt like I was missing out on anything, but I still wanted her to have the experience of having her father in her life, because it was always like those little things when I was younger, like Father's Day, when I would have to make cards, or I remember one time at church we were picking ties for our dad, and I would have to give it to like my uncle or my grandpa or something. So just those little things that I felt growing up, I didn't want her to go through it. And at that point I felt like me enduring the, you know, the physical and mental abuse was worth it. And I went back to him. Like, throughout the relationship, there's so many crazy things that I endured that when I go back, I'm like, what was I thinking? I remember one time we got in an argument and I wanted to break up with him. He took like my hair scarves, which are pretty long because my head is pretty big. He took one of my head scarves and like tied one end around his neck and locked himself in the bathroom and tied the other end to the doorknob. So every time I would like open the door in the bathroom, because I think the door had like swung out, I'm pretty sure, I don't remember, but the way it was, every time I would open the bathroom door, it would like choke him. Like, he was so crazy. He would just do all kinds of crazy things. And the fact that I even endured it for so long is unbelievable to me. Like, the me now, I probably would have, I don't even know. When stuff like that happens to you, you don't really think it's that serious. I don't know. Like, I don't know what I was thinking at that point, but I should have been thinking to leave. That's what I should have been thinking. I should have left, because he is crazy. It's not even like he had a job. He was spoiling me. Like, usually you watch videos, like movies and stuff, and the abuser is supporting the woman totally, so she's scared to lose everything. But that man was not doing nothing for me. Like, he did not buy nothing for my daughter except maybe a couple diapers here and there, maybe some Similac off of his food stamp card, but that's about it. Like, he wasn't doing nothing major. That's actually another gag, which I'll tell that story another day. But basically, so as far as I can go on and on and on and tell you about the experience I had with him, but the most important part is that I did end up leaving. And it got to a point where I had run off with him to Virginia because my family was not in support of the relationship, and I felt like, I don't know, like it would have been better. I was hardly in contact with my family at this point, which is probably the hardest thing about the whole situation, because I'm so very close to my, I don't think I've told my family this whole story before, but I'm so very close to my family. So that whole almost year where I was away from them, it was like really hard because my mommy is like my best friend. And I think I was so scared of them being disappointed, which is probably why I just left and hardly stayed in contact with them, because I knew better. And I wouldn't even say that I was so in love with him. It was mostly the fear of not having my daughter have her father in her life. And now that I'm older and wiser, it's not worth it. I would not do it again. I do not care that he does not keep in contact with her. It got to a point when I was in Virginia, I had to choose between basically her and him, because I was afraid that he would just take her, and being as though he's not mentally stable. Like, I've gotten death threats from him, death threats from him, like all kinds of things. And I didn't want her to be with somebody that wasn't mentally stable. I didn't want that for her. So I left back to my mom's house to get on my feet, and then I moved a little later. But I left, and maybe a couple weeks to a month, he contacted me. After I left, I wasn't like, oh, you would never see your daughter again, because that's not the type of person I am. I contacted him one time because he was supposed to meet me at the station close by my house to pick her up for the weekend. And basically he was telling me, because I told you he got another female pregnant, and she had already had her son. So he was telling me that, oh, I'm not going to go out my way to go pick up a child that doesn't even look like me. I will show you the picture in this video, and you guys can be the judge of that tea. He told me that he wasn't going to go his way to, you know, see a child that don't even look like him. You not heard me? I was like, okay, enough said, and went about my merry life. So that's it. Any advice that I have for other people, I would say, you know, don't put up with it. There's so many resources. Like I've met so many women that were going through something similar, because before I left the state of Virginia, I had retreated to a DV, a domestic violence program, and I met so many women that were going through like crazy things. Like it could have been way worse. Like people go through a lot of stuff. I remember this one woman I met had 3 kids. One child was not her husband's. She had had him way before, but she had 2 other children by her husband, and she was being abused brutally by him, like broken ribs, broken bones, like crutches and everything. And she was with this man for 12 years. And the crazy part is that his parents lived with them, and they were witnessing this and not saying anything. So it could have been worse. And I'm just glad that I only endured that for like 2 years, I want to say. A little over 2 years, maybe. Up to a year. I don't know. Yeah, about 2 years. It could have been way worse. Like there's people that go through hell and back. I mean, I'm not downgrading my own story, but I feel as though it could have been way worse, because I've heard so many crazy stories at this time. And I think throughout this whole situation, I was just grateful that God gave me the strength to leave. And that is, I'm so blessed for that. So I would tell any male, female, husband, wife, sister, brother, daughter, uncle, aunt, niece, cousin, anybody, like, no matter who is doing this to you, it doesn't even have to necessarily be your spouse. If somebody is abusing you to the point where, you know, you're getting bruises and stuff, like that, it's clearly abuse. But it gets to a point where there's a line crossed. If you get to that point, then you need to be gone. You need to really leave. And we're lucky to have so many different programs with the state and retreats. Like there's so many options for you to just leave. And you should never feel as though you're not strong enough to leave, because no matter if that person is your sole provider, you always have an option. So that's my little story time for the day. Thank y'all. And remember, I can only be